Hey, welcome back. This is Dino, and today's mini lecture, I'm going to talk about the Panopticon, Surveilling Society. Dun 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 dun. First off, the obvious question probably is, what is a Panopticon? I kind of have two sort of quick definitions or quick instances of it. One, it's an institutional building, which we'll talk about, and it's also a system of control. The idea of the panopticon was created by English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham back in the late 18th century. And then I just break down the term in terms of pan and opticon. All inmates of an institution, that's pan, can be observed, opticon. But before Bentham, it has a sort of a longer etymological background in terms of the formation of the word. It implies a single watchman, and it comes from the idea of Panoptes, a giant with 1,000 eyes. Scary looking fella. What is a panopticon in terms of prisons? That's kind of more of a common use due to Bentham. The way that a panopticon is structured, the inmates within a jail or a prison cannot tell if they're being watched. And if you have one watchman and a lot of prisoners or inmates, the watchman cannot observe all the cells at once, obviously, because it would be just physically too hard. Due to the construction of the panopticon, the inmates act like they're always watched, and this compels the inmates to constantly control their behavior. So look at there's a sort of an image on the right, and lower right. I'll show it in more detail in the next slide. On the left here, if you look at the right in the middle, there's an N. There's like it's kind of like I'm looking at the lower part of the image. Basically, N in the middle is where you'd have the watchmen, and then you have these people in cells, all the A's around the periphery, and the N, the watchman can look at them all. But because of the way the prison is constructed and the distance from the cells to the watchmen, the prisoners can't tell if they're being watched. And as you see here, on the right, there is a person, an inmate who's on his or her knees in this little cell, and you can see the sort of central place where the watchman is in the distance. There's an image, and I'll talk about it more in the next slide. The idea of the panopticon, Bentham's prison idea, it's influenced jails all over the world, in Burma, Indonesia, Vietnam, all over Europe, as in England, France, Germany, Hungary, Ireland, Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Scotland, and Spain, as well Australia, New Zealand, as well as in North America, Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. So it's had a big influence. This is a image of an interior view of a cell house, the new Illinois State Penitentiary at Statesville near Joliet. And again, as you see, they're right in the middle. On the lower part, you can see that's where the watchman would be, and the cells would be on the periphery. This, if you're Batman fans, that's a great Lucius Fox in the Batman films, and this is sort of showing these camera feeds all over Gotham. So it's kind of like the same idea where Lucius would be the watchman, and then they're not cells, but basically it's sort of implying that he or whoever that person is can see all over the city. Michel Foucault analyzed the idea of panopticons in his iconic work, Discipline and Punish. I'd highly recommend reading it if you had the chance. The panopticon must not be understood as a dream building. It is the diagram of a mechanism of power reduced to its ideal form. So again, I think the ideal form here for power is that you have the one person, the watchman in the middle, being able to surveil everyone on the periphery. So based on all of that, do you have any thoughts on the panopticon? Why do we have it? Is it useful? Are there any positives or negatives? You might want to pause the video and think about that on your own. You may provide them in the comments below if you'd like. So not only is the idea of a panopticon useful for prisons, but it can also be used in other areas, especially in like the public service, such as hospitals, sanatoriums, asylums, and even schools. And I wonder if these applications kind of change your mind. Like if you think about schools, for example, your traditional sort of way that they're conducted is you have at the very front of the room is the teacher, and he or she's at the front, and then he or she can see because they're standing up, and the desks are usually where the students are sitting are below he or she, the teacher, can sort of see everywhere. And it kind of, again, it sort of gives the idea that a student might perceive that they're being surveilled all the time, forcing them to behave in ways that they might not otherwise. And then for technology and social media, maybe think about, before we go on, what's the Panopticon's relation to social media and technology generally in our devices, our omnipresent devices? I would say it's kind of a form of social control. When you post online, you're not just posting to a vacuum where you don't know the people participating. Normally, people you interact with on social media, normally, especially people close to you, you know them. You might have followers on Twitter who just follow you because you're a quote unquote thought leader or famous or whatever else. But for the most part, you have a relationship, and that forces you, because you know you're being surveilled by other people, to possibly change your behavior and your postings in some ways. Some questions to kind of leave you on are: do social media platforms erode personal privacy? How and why? And what are the corresponding increases in commercialization of social media information? You can, in terms of personal privacy, the first sets of questions. If you're posting all about your life to relatively public forums like social media platforms, your personal privacy would almost by definition be somehow constrained. And then, because in terms of commercialization, if you're putting all this media, these posts on social media, again, this is just data that social media companies, they can sell ads to you or sell your data to someone else who can then subsequently commercialize your data. That was Panopticon, Surveilling Society. Hope it wasn't too scary. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.